Genius is not a spark. It is a storm concealed in silence. The world imagines it as brilliance, shining in daylight. But true genius works in shadow, unseen, uncelebrated, mistaken for madness or cruelty, until its results are undeniable. It is not talent alone. It is not intelligence alone. It is clarity sharpened into a weapon, the kind of clarity that makes others shiver, because it strips away the illusions they cling to. Where others see rules, genius sees levers. Where others see morality, genius sees chains. Where others see permanence, genius sees glass waiting to crack. Most men live asleep inside cages they never notice. They speak of freedom, but they breathe obedience. They bow to laws they did not write, customs they did not choose, values they did not test. They inherit illusions like hand-me-down clothes and wear them until they rot. But genius refuses hand-me-downs. Genius tears the fabric, examines the thread, and asks the forbidden question, who stitched this cage and why? That single question separates him from the herd. It breaks the spell. It marks the beginning of dominion. Do not mistake genius for brilliance in conversation or elegance in art. Those may be ornaments, but they are not essence. Genius is not measured by applause. It is measured by the ability to shape obedience, to make men kneel not through force, but through conviction. Convictions you planted in their minds without their knowing. That is the art, not to conquer bodies, but to conquer perception itself. Force can chain hands. Illusion can chain souls. A tyrant shouts, a genius whispers, and the whisper binds more firmly than any iron. Yet genius understands that illusion must not become intoxication. The fool believes his own masks. The genius wears them, discards them, and forges new ones as a smith forges blades. Every illusion is temporary. Every myth decays. To cling to yesterday's symbols is to die in yesterday's prison. So the genius evolves. He shifts form, reinvents stories, replaces rituals. He never allows the crowd to grow comfortable. For comfort breeds questions, and questions are poison to illusions. Better to keep them restless, forever chasing meanings that you manufacture. Keep their eyes on the horizon so they never notice the leash around their throats. This is why the genius embraces solitude. Ordinary men flee silence because it forces them to face their emptiness. But genius walks into silence willingly. He sharpens his thoughts there as a swordsman sharpens steel. He studies history not as nostalgia, but as instruction. He dissects the lives of rulers and ruins, scanning for patterns, recording the weaknesses that destroyed them. His solitude is not loneliness. It is rehearsal. When he emerges, his words cut like blades because they were tempered in silence. The crowd hears inevitability in his tone without knowing why. They mistake calculation for destiny. They call him chosen, while he is only prepared. Understand this. The genius rules without chains. He may seem bound by the same laws, the same morals, the same customs as others. He bows with the crowd, kneels with the herd, speaks with the faithful. But inside he is laughing, for he knows every law is written by victors, every tradition enforced by conquerors, every sacred truth crafted to keep the herd obedient. The masses treat these inventions as eternal. The genius sees them as tools. He does not obey the script. He rewrites it, and once he writes it, others bow as if it were divine, never realizing it was his pen, his invention, his shadow that rules them. But such invention requires patience. No man survives by spitting openly on tradition. No ruler lasts who mocks the gods in daylight. Genius does not strike illusions directly. He bows to them publicly, while privately planning their replacement. He praises the old order while preparing the new. He cloaks treachery in necessity, cruelty in justice, ambition in duty. And because men are desperate to believe, they forgive what they should condemn. A fool rebels openly and is crushed. A genius plays humble until the hour comes, and then the crowd kneels willingly, thanking him for their chains. To rule, genius must also understand the substance of men. Men are not rational. They are not noble. They are appetites on two legs. They crave comfort more than freedom. They choose routine over truth. They hunger for security, even if it enslaves them. The genius does not waste time persuading them with logic. He binds them with fear and reward. A taste of pleasure makes them obedient. A glimpse of punishment makes them loyal. He alternates these forces like a musician alternates notes, creating rhythm, the whip, then the feast. The crowd believes they are free, even as they march to his rhythm, and because they believe, they defend their own chains as if defending their lives. But cruelty, too, requires precision. The genius does not drown in blood like a barbarian. He cuts like a surgeon, swiftly, decisively. One sharp strike, then silence, and then mercy. Mercy that cements loyalty while the memory of punishment still burns. Fear without hatred, that is the foundation of lasting dominion. Men will fear you and still follow. They will even love the justice of your cruelty if you balance it with the performance of mercy. This is the choreography of genius, cruelty and mercy, terror and kindness, orchestrated with ruthless calculation. Do not imagine this path is without cost. Genius carries a heavy burden. It strips you of illusions, of comforts, of companionship. The higher you climb in clarity, the fewer equals remain beside you. The herd resents what it cannot understand. You will walk alone, envied, feared, misunderstood. They will call you arrogant, cruel, dangerous, inhuman. Let them. Their curses are confirmation that you are no longer one of them. Greatness is not born in consensus. It is forged in solitude, and while they mock you in life, they will worship you in death, because distance softens truth into legend. Accept the curse now, because it is the price of sovereignty. In that solitude, feed your mind on iron. Train it as soldiers train their bodies. Study betrayal as others study friendship. Study weakness as others study strength. See men not as companions, but as specimens. Observe how they flatter, how they betray, how they crumble under fear. Record these lessons like a general records intelligence before war, for life is war. Politics is war without blood. War is politics drenched in it. To master one is to master the other. To master both is to command the fate of nations. Every throne is conquered by war and preserved by cunning. Genius is he who wields both sword and mask, lion and fox, and bends fortune to his design. Do not romanticize it. Genius is not a gift. It is a burden. It demands vigilance, discipline, restraint. It demands that you wear masks you despise, bow to rituals you mock, smile at men you will betray. It demands isolation, suspicion, endless calculation. But in return, it grants sovereignty. You will not be loved, but you will be obeyed. You will not be understood, but you will be feared. The herd will whisper your name as accusation, but history will carve it as inevitability. And when the ruins of illusions lie scattered at your feet, they will call what you built from them genius. The crowd clings to permanence like children clutching toys. They imagine their laws eternal, their wealth secure, their empires unbreakable. But nothing endures without force sustaining it. Nothing lasts without vigilance guarding it. Empires decay, faiths fracture, wealth evaporates. The masses live blind to this decay because blindness is comfort. But genius lives in opposite rhythm. He assumes nothing is secure. He treats every fortress as vulnerable, every alliance as fragile, every advantage as fleeting. This is not paranoia. It is wisdom. It is the vigilance that makes collapse into opportunity. Others are surprised by disaster. Genius profits from it. To wield foresight, you must master detachment. Attachment blinds men. They cling to possessions, to affections, to titles, until those very anchors drag them down. Genius treats them as tools. He discards them as easily as he acquires them. He loves when useful, abandons when necessary, sacrifices when required. This cold freedom terrifies the herd because they cannot imagine life without chains. But it makes genius untouchable. Rivals can be ruined by poverty, by betrayal, by heartbreak. But the genius who clings to nothing cannot be broken. He flows like water, adapting, reforming, reclaiming. Never destroyed, because he never chained himself to what can decay. Look at history. The man who clings to outdated weapons dies on the battlefield. The ruler who clings to yesterday's allies is betrayed tomorrow. The thinker who clings to yesterday's truths is mocked by posterity. But the genius survives because he clings to nothing but clarity. He is loyal only to power, and power shifts shape with the seasons. If cruelty secures power, he is cruel. If mercy strengthens it, he is merciful. If silence preserves it, he is silent. He bends with fortune's storms but never breaks. To the herd, it seems as if fate itself favors him. But fate favors only the vigilant. This adaptability is not weakness. It is the highest form of courage, because it demands the sacrifice of comfort and the embrace of risk. It demands transformation without end, yet direction without hesitation. The genius is not tossed like a leaf by chaos. He is the sailor steering the storm. He unleashes chaos on his enemies, but rides above it himself. To his enemies he appears unpredictable, to his followers inevitable, to history indomitable. They call it destiny. He calls it discipline. They call it luck. He calls it vigilance. They call it genius. He calls it necessity. And yet genius must always guard against his most lethal enemy, himself. Power blinds as easily as it strengthens. The intoxication of applause, the illusion of invincibility, the vanity of spectacle. These are more fatal than rivals. Many men rise as conquerors and fall as their own worshippers. They drink the wine they once poured for others. They mistake the mask for truth. They believe their own illusions. Genius avoids this poison by remembering. Every mask is temporary, every illusion fragile, every throne unstable. He builds, uses, and discards without worshipping his own creations. His suspicion never sleeps. His vigilance never fades. His clarity never softens. And so genius moves through life as both creator and destroyer. Master of illusion, slave to none. He builds myths for others, but refuses to believe in any himself. He rules men while expecting their betrayal. He shapes meaning while distrusting it. He belongs to nothing, not even to his own image. And because he belongs to nothing, nothing can own him. The herd calls this monstrous, unnatural, inhuman. Let them. Their chains are their comfort, and their comfort their coffin. Genius is freedom, and freedom is terrifying to slaves. But here is the brilliance. Genius does not drown himself in deception. He knows that if every word is a lie, the mask will collapse. Lies rot when used in excess. So he sprinkles truth into his falsehoods like salt into meat. Enough to preserve, enough to flavor, enough to make the whole illusion believable. He admits small faults to conceal greater sins. He grants minor freedoms to disguise deeper chains. He offers kindness after cruelty to bind the victim in gratitude. He becomes a master of balance. Never too much, never too little, always enough to keep the illusion alive. Understand this. People do not want truth. They want comfort disguised as truth. They crave certainty more than reality. A genius recognizes this hunger and feeds it carefully. Too much raw truth and they recoil, terrified. Too much sweet illusion and they grow suspicious. So he mixes both until the poison tastes like honey. They drink willingly and they thank him for it. They call him savior, liberator, visionary. But what he has given them is not freedom. It is dependence, not enlightenment, but shadow dressed as light. And because they crave it, they defend it. They defend him. They kneel more willingly than if he had forced them. This is the paradox. Genius rules most effectively when his hand is invisible. The masses love to believe they chose their master. They despise the tyrant who chains them. But they adore the genius who convinces them they chained themselves. He does not shout, "Obey me." He whispers, "You are free," and then defines freedom on his terms. They never notice that their choices were written by his hand long before they chose. They never realize that their desires were shaped by his design. That is why his power is lasting. Force alone is brittle. Conviction is unbreakable. Conviction that he plants. Conviction they defend. But power is not maintained by illusion alone. Genius understands that fortune is fickle. Storms strike without warning. Enemies strike without mercy. He does not build his throne on sand. He builds it on vigilance. He anticipates betrayal before it breathes. He studies rivals as a hunter studies prey, noting habits, weaknesses, blind spots. He tests allies with small temptations to measure their loyalty. He never gives absolute trust. Trust is a luxury for the weak. He offers trust as a mask, never as a reality. For betrayal is inevitable, and when it comes, the genius is not surprised. He is ready. This readiness is what separates genius from the merely clever. Clever men improvise under fire. Genius arranges the fire himself. He engineers the conditions of conflict, so that even when betrayed, the betrayal happens on his terms. Even when attacked, the battlefield favors him. His foresight turns enemies into instruments of his plan. Their treachery becomes their downfall, because he was already waiting. To the crowd, this looks like destiny. To rivals, like sorcery. But it is neither. It is calculation. Ruthless, endless calculation. And calculation demands sacrifice. A genius learns to kill sentiment before it kills him. He may admire, he may even love, but he never clings. When loyalty weakens, he cuts ties swiftly. When tools dull, he discards them without hesitation. When pawns outlive their purpose, he removes them cleanly. Cruelty, yes, but cruelty in service of preservation. A king who spares a traitor for sentiment digs his own grave. A genius who cuts swiftly survives. Remember Machiavelli. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Love is fragile. Fear is lasting. Love bends with the wind. Fear anchors the soul, but fear alone is not enough. Terror can breed hatred, and hatred festers into rebellion. The genius tempers fear with admiration. He stages acts of mercy, calculated gestures of humanity, grand performances of virtue, not because he feels them, but because they serve him. Mercy after cruelty binds deeper than mercy alone. Kindness after fear feels like salvation. The victim becomes grateful for the leash. They kiss the hand that strikes them, because that hand also feeds them. That is mastery. That is genius. Still, the greatest danger is not rebellion from without. It is rot from within. Power intoxicates, applause deafens. The genius knows that the higher he climbs, the sharper his balance must become. One slip, and he tumbles. One indulgence, and he is undone. He must remain both fox and lion, illusionist and executioner, saint and monster. If he favors one mask too long, it hardens, and he begins to believe it himself. That is fatal. He must live in constant suspicion, especially of his own image. He must destroy his illusions before they destroy him. This suspicion keeps him awake while others sleep. It is the solitude that gnaws but also strengthens. For genius is condemned to walk apart. He cannot belong to the herd he manipulates. He cannot confide in the allies he mistrusts. He cannot rest among the rituals he has unmasked. He walks alone, armored in vigilance, sharpened by solitude, and though the crowd may envy his throne, they could not endure his burden. They dream of power, but they cannot stomach the clarity it requires. Genius bears clarity as both weapon and curse. He sees too much, and so he belongs nowhere. And yet this curse is what grants him dominion. For the herd, blinded by comfort, never sees collapse until it devours them. But genius, watching from his lonely tower, sees cracks before they spread. He turns collapse into opportunity, betrayal into leverage, chaos into order. Where others drown, he sails. Where others weep, he builds. Where others pray, he acts. This is why fortune bends to him, not because the gods favor him, but because he prepares where others dream. The crowd calls it fate. He knows it is vigilance, and what of legacy? Ordinary men crave to be remembered as kind, as noble, as virtuous. But genius cares little for their fragile praises. He knows reputation is a mask like any other, worn today, forgotten tomorrow. His true legacy is power itself, not monuments, not songs, not statues. Power. The structures he built, the convictions he forged, the chains he disguised as freedom. Those endure long after his name is dust. The people who cursed him in life will worship his image in death. They will polish the myth while forgetting the man. And so, his dominion outlives him, hidden inside their obedience. This is why genius never bows to morality. Morality is a costume sewn by the victors of yesterday. Today's saint was yesterday's butcher. Today's justice is tomorrow's oppression. The herd cannot see this. They cling to moral illusions because they fear the abyss. Genius does not fear the abyss. He builds upon it. He shapes morality as clay, bending it into whatever form sustains his power. And when morality shifts, he shifts with it. He is not bound to right or wrong, but to advantage. That is his compass. That is his faith. Not truth, not virtue. Advantage. And so genius walks the world as an architect of illusions, a sculptor of obedience, a master of fear and mercy. He bows when bowing is useful, strikes when striking is necessary, vanishes when vanishing serves. He becomes untouchable because he belongs to nothing. He cannot be cornered because he has no fixed shape. He cannot be destroyed because he clings to nothing that can be taken. He survives all storms because he has already drowned in solitude and risen sharper from it. The herd will never understand him. They will call him monster, deceiver, tyrant, but in the end, they will obey him. They will obey because his clarity frightens them. They will obey because his illusions comfort them. They will obey because his power leaves no alternative. That obedience is the proof of his genius. That obedience is his kingdom. Remember this as you walk through the ruins of history. Every empire you see crumbled because its ruler forgot one of these truths. They believed their own masks. They trusted their own friends. They loved when they should have feared. They clung when they should have cut. Genius survives because he does not forget. He remembers the fragility of all things. He remembers the hunger of men, the volatility of fortune, the necessity of cruelty. He remembers that the throne is not a seat. It is a blade, balanced on a point. To sit upon it is to bleed. Only vigilance keeps you upright. Only clarity keeps you alive. So walk carefully, speak carefully, trust sparingly, strike swiftly, wear your masks lightly. Fear comfort more than hardship. Fear illusions more than enemies. Fear yourself most of all, for genius is not a gift you inherit. It is a discipline you earn. It is a vigilance you practice. It is a clarity you sharpen every day until the world bends before it. And when it does, when they kneel, when they whisper your name with fear and awe, remember, you are not loved. You are obeyed. You are not worshipped. You are endured. And that is enough. That is sovereignty. That is genius. Stay, because the next truth will not flatter you. It will cut deeper than this one. And if you can survive it, you will walk closer to the throne.